What if I told you a 30-year-old castle-themed casino is quietly outperforming some of the most expensive resorts on the Las Vegas Strip? While billion-dollar towers struggle to fill rooms, slash prices, and cut staff, Excalibur keeps humming like nothing is wrong. And that should not be happening, because what's happening here is not nostalgia. It's a warning. It reveals why luxury is starting to fail in Las Vegas, what visitors are actually rejecting, and what the Strip may be forced to become next. Number 10. Price beats prestige. There is a reason Excalibur rarely sits empty. The rooms are priced for real people with real budgets. While luxury resorts push nightly rates past $400 hoping to attract high rollers, Excalibur regularly offers stays under $100 a night. That difference is not small. It is the difference between a spontaneous weekend trip and a vacation that requires months of saving. When prices feel approachable, decisions happen fast. A couple scrolling travel sites does not need to run calculations or justify the expense. They book and move on. That speed matters because hesitation kills bookings. Every minute a potential guest spends debating whether a room is worth it is a minute they might find a cheaper option somewhere else. Luxury resorts bet on exclusivity. They believe a higher price signals higher value and attracts wealthier guests. But that math only works when wealthy guests are actively traveling. When the economy tightens or travel slows, those expensive rooms sit empty, while Excalibur fills up night after night. Price is not a compromise at Excalibur, it is a strategy. By staying affordable, the property taps into the largest pool of travelers instead of fighting over the smallest one. Prestige sounds impressive, but it does not pay the bills when the rooms are dark. But filling rooms is only the first step. What really matters is what happens once those guests walk through the door. Number 9. High occupancy matters more than high rates. Here is the math that luxury resorts keep getting wrong. A $500 room that sits empty 3 nights a week makes less money than a $90 room that sells out every single night. Occupancy is not just a vanity metric. It is the engine that powers everything else a casino hotel earns. When Excalibur fills its rooms, those guests do not just sleep. They wake up and eat breakfast. They gamble in the evening. They buy drinks by the pool. They wander into the arcade with their kids or catch a show before dinner. Every occupied room creates dozens of secondary spending opportunities that an empty room can never generate. Luxury resorts often focus on revenue per room instead of total revenue per guest. They celebrate a single high-paying customer while ignoring the 100 moderate spenders they turned away with intimidating prices. Excalibur flips that logic. It packs the building full and lets volume do the work. A busy hotel also feels alive. Energy attracts energy. When guests see crowds at the casino floor and lines at the restaurants, they assume they picked the right place. An empty lobby, no matter how beautifully designed, feels like a warning sign. People start wondering what everyone else knows that they do not. Excalibur understood something the luxury market forgot. Full rooms create momentum. Momentum creates spending. And spending is what actually keeps a casino in business. But even a full hotel needs the right kind of guest behavior to thrive. That brings us to the next advantage. Number 8. Guests use it as a base, not a destination. Luxury resorts want you to stay inside. They build elaborate pools, exclusive nightclubs, and world-class restaurants specifically, so you never feel the need to leave. The entire business model depends on capturing your wallet from check-in to check-out. Excalibur plays a different game entirely. Most guests do not book Excalibur expecting a self-contained experience. They book it because they want a clean, affordable room in a prime location. Then they spend their days and nights exploring the rest of the Strip, catching shows at other properties, eating at restaurants across the boulevard, and returning to Excalibur only when they need sleep. This sounds like a disadvantage, but it is actually a strength. Excalibur does not need to compete with the Bellagio buffet or the Cosmopolitan nightclub. It does not need to invest millions in amenities that guests might ignore. It simply needs to offer a comfortable bed at a fair price and let the rest of Vegas do the heavy lifting. The result is a lean operation with low expectations and high satisfaction. Guests are not disappointed that Excalibur lacks a celebrity steakhouse because they never expected one. They came for value and location, and that is exactly what they received. Meanwhile, luxury resorts face constant pressure to justify their prices with ever more extravagant offerings. When guests pay $500 a night, they expect perfection. Excalibur sidesteps that trap entirely. But affordability only works if you attract enough guests to fill the building. And Excalibur has one major audience that luxury resorts abandoned long ago. Number 7. Families and groups are welcome. Walk through the lobby of most new strip resorts, and the message is clear. This place is for adults with money to burn. Nightclubs dominate the marketing. Day clubs target Instagram influencers. Family-friendly entertainment has been quietly stripped away in favor of bottle service and velvet ropes. Excalibur never followed that trend. The medieval theme was designed for families from day one, and the property never abandoned that identity. Kids still pose with knights in the hallways. The arcade still buzzes with teenagers burning through tokens. Parents still appreciate a hotel where no one looks at them sideways for bringing children. This is not nostalgia. It is market share. Families represent one of the largest travel demographics in America, and most of them have been priced out of the modern strip. They scroll past the Aria and the Venetian because the nightly rate alone would blow their vacation budget. Excalibur catches them with open arms. Group travel follows the same pattern. Bachelor parties, reunion trips, and friend getaways often prioritize affordability over aesthetics. When you are splitting a room 4 ways, nobody cares about thread count. They care about having enough money left for actual fun. By staying family and group friendly, Excalibur taps into traveler pools that luxury resorts voluntarily surrendered. Those guests fill rooms year-round, not just during peak seasons. They return for repeat visits because they know what to expect. But welcoming guests means nothing if you frustrate them with hidden costs once they arrive. That is where the next advantage kicks in. Number 6. Fewer add-on fees reduce friction. Ruins a vacation faster than feeling nickeled and dimed. You check into a strip resort excited to relax, and within hours, you have paid a $50 resort fee, a $40 parking charge, and a $20 early check-in premium. By the time you reach your room, the deal you thought you booked has already disappeared. Excalibur is not free of fees, but the overall experience feels less predatory. Guests know roughly what they are paying before they arrive. There are fewer surprise charges lurking at checkout. The gap between advertised price and final cost stays narrow enough that visitors do not feel cheated. This matters more than most resorts realize. When guests feel deceived, they tighten their wallets, they skip the restaurant downstairs, they avoid the casino floor, they spend their money literally anywhere else just to spite the property that tricked them. Resentment is expensive. A relaxed guest behaves completely differently. They wander through the gift shop without suspicion. They sit at a slot machine without calculating how much the hotel already took from them. They come back next year because the memory of the trip is not poisoned by financial stress. Excalibur earns trust by keeping the pricing straightforward. Trust leads to comfort. Comfort leads to spending. It is not complicated, but most luxury resorts still have not figured it out. But low fees don't matter if guests never use the property. And one of Excalibur's biggest advantages is where it sits. Number 5. Location without luxury pressure. Excalibur sits at one of the busiest intersections on the entire strip. The Tropicana Crosswalk connects it to MGM Grand, New York, New York, and the soon-to-be-opened baseball stadium district. Millions of tourists pass by those castle towers every year without even trying. That location would normally demand luxury pricing. Prime real estate on Las Vegas Boulevard does not come cheap, and most properties in that zone charge accordingly. But Excalibur breaks the pattern. It offers top-tier access without the top-tier attitude. Guests staying at Excalibur can walk to dozens of restaurants, shows, and casinos within minutes. They never need a taxi to reach the heart of the action. They wake up already inside the experience that other visitors pay hundreds of dollars extra to access. And here's the key. Excalibur does not pressure guests into spending just because of where it sits. There is no implied dress code, no judgmental stares in the lobby, no minimum spend requirements to enjoy the pool. Guests get Strip location with budget expectations, and that combination is surprisingly rare. Luxury resorts assume that prime real estate justifies premium treatment. Excalibur proves that access and attitude do not have to come bundled together, but location only brings people through the door. What keeps them entertained inside is another question entirely. Number 4. Simple entertainment still works. The Strip spent the last 2 decades chasing spectacle. Resident headliners commanding $200 tickets, Cirque du Soleil productions with 8-figure budgets, nightclubs where a table reservation costs more than most families spend on an entire vacation. The theory was simple: bigger entertainment justifies bigger prices. Excalibur ignored all of that. The property still operates a dinner show with jousting nights. The arcade remains one of the largest on the Strip. There are no Michelin stars, no celebrity DJs, no performances requiring a second mortgage to attend, and somehow foot traffic keeps flowing. Simple entertainment costs less to produce and less to maintain. A comedian performing 2 shows a night in a small theater does not require the infrastructure of a full Broadway transplant. An arcade filled with classic games does not need constant reinvention to draw families with restless kids. This is not about being cheap. It is about matching expectations. Guests at Excalibur are not hunting for world-class artistry. They want distraction, laughter, and something to do between meals and gambling. Simple delivers exactly that, without draining the operating budget. Meanwhile, luxury resorts pour millions into productions that may or may not connect with audiences. A failed residency does not just lose ticket revenue. It damages the brand and empties the rooms. Excalibur avoids that risk entirely by keeping expectations modest and entertainment reliable. But entertainment is only one piece of the cost puzzle. The bigger savings come from the building itself. Number 3, older design keeps costs down. Walk into Excalibur and you are not stepping into the future. The castle theme debuted in 1990 and has not radically changed since. The towers look the same, the color scheme is the same, the medieval motif still dominates everything from the signage to the carpet patterns. Some critics call it outdated, accountants call it genius. Every few years, major Strip resorts spend hundreds of millions on renovations. They gut lobbies, redesign room blocks, and chase whatever aesthetic trend is dominating hospitality magazines. These projects take months, disrupt operations, and rarely guarantee increased bookings. The cycle never ends because the expectation is that luxury must constantly reinvent itself. Excalibur skips that treadmill. Guests book the castle knowing it is a castle. They do not expect cutting-edge design or minimalist chic. They expect turrets, banners, and maybe a suit of armor in the hallway. Delivering on that expectation costs a fraction of what reinvention demands. Lower renovation costs translate directly into lower operating expenses. Lower operating expenses allow the property to stay profitable even at budget room rates. It is a closed loop that protects the business regardless of what the broader market does. Excalibur does not need to keep up with the Cosmopolitan because it never tried to compete in that category. It built an identity and stuck with it. That consistency is worth more than any remodel, but cost efficiency only goes so far. At some point, the difference comes down to philosophy, and that brings us to the real divide between Excalibur and the luxury towers struggling around it. Number 2. Luxury resorts depend on image. The modern luxury resort runs on perception. Every design choice, every partnership, every influencer collaboration is meant to reinforce a single message. This is where important people stay. The business model assumes that enough travelers will pay a premium just to associate themselves with that image. When times are good, the strategy works. High earners book expensive suites. Corporations host lavish events. Social media buzzes with content from the hottest new property. But when times tighten, image becomes a liability. A tourist deciding between a $400 room and a $100 room does not care how the lobby looks on Instagram. They care about value. And when value becomes the priority, image alone cannot fill beds. The prestige that once attracted guests becomes a barrier that keeps them away. Excalibur has no image problem because it never sold image in the first place. There is no aspirational branding to maintain, no illusion to protect. Guests arrive expecting an affordable room in a fun, kitschy castle, and that is exactly what they get. The honesty is disarming. Luxury resorts are trapped by their own success. They cannot lower prices without damaging the exclusivity they spent years building. Excalibur has no such constraints. It can adapt, discount, and pivot without risking its identity. When the market shifts, one model bends while the other breaks. And that brings us to the real reason Excalibur keeps winning. Number 1. Excalibur sells comfort, not intimidation. At the end of the day, people book hotels where they feel welcome, not impressed, not intimidated. Welcome. Excalibur figured this out before it ever opened its doors, and the lesson still holds 30 years later. Think about the experience of walking into a luxury resort. The lobby is pristine, the staff is immaculate, and everything whispers that you probably do not belong unless you can afford to prove otherwise. For many travelers, that atmosphere is not aspirational. It is exhausting. They spend the whole trip wondering if they are dressed correctly, tipping enough, or somehow embarrassing themselves in a world designed for wealthier guests. Excalibur removes all of that pressure. The castle theme is silly, on purpose. The crowd is casual. The expectations are non-existent. Guests show up in flip-flops and nobody blinks. Kids run through the halls and nobody complains. The entire property feels like it is smiling instead of judging. That warmth translates into loyalty. Guests return to Excalibur not because it is the nicest hotel in Vegas, but because it is the easiest. No stress, no performance, just a place to sleep, recharge, and enjoy the trip without constantly worrying about fitting in. Las Vegas was built on the promise of escape. Somewhere along the way, luxury resorts turned that escape into an endurance test. Excalibur kept it simple, and as long as travelers value comfort over status, that castle on the corner will keep filling rooms while fancier towers wonder what went wrong.